Sunset and evening star, and one clear call for me. And may there be no mourning of the bar when I put out to sea. But such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and form, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. For though from out a bourne of time and place the flood may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. Yes, Lord Alfred Tennyson's poem, and it is but fitting that I do it at the very end of our discussion of poetry from the collection of ISC stories, the Reverie, right? Because the poem which Lord Alfred Tennyson wrote in 1899 was written, as is mentioned in the text, 3 years before he died, and it was as if he was in this poem. He's speaking about his impending death. He had already felt it coming. Yes, and it actually, there's a story that we don't know how far that's true, but the story is that he wrote it within 20 minutes when he was on a ferry going to where he used to live, the Isle of Wight. And also he had told the editors, it was a standing instruction, though he had written many poems after this, his instruction to the editors, instruction was that this poem should always appear as the last poem in a selection. So, like I said, probably his thoughts about death were so strong that he knew it was very close. And hence, at the very end of our selection, we do Crossing the Bar. When I mentioned about, when we were discussing Matthew Arnold, I told you about the three Victorian poets, Lord Tennyson, of course, being the foremost of the group, along with Matthew Arnold and Robert Browning, right? So you have a few details given on page 15 about precisely 3 years before he died. He died in 1892. He wrote this poem in 1889, and you have the metaphor, lots of metaphors in this poem. We shall go through the metaphors one by one. But if you look at the title, Crossing the Bar itself is the sandbar. If you've been to the beach, you'll see how when the water flows in, it carries sand with it. And what happens is it becomes a kind of an obstruction, a kind of a barrier, right? And it sort of creates a kind of a false, uh, false, what will I call it? It's like a false sense of a fencing that has been created beyond which you cannot go, right? So this is the sandbar that he sees on the beach, and the bar that we see in the poem refers to also that crossing over, because the bar that Lord Tennyson is going to cross is going to be only the bar that can be crossed only from one side. There is no return, because he's moving on, he's crossing over from one life to the next. Yes, the end of this existence. So you can only cross this bar but once. Yes, if I may use this poetic line for this. So that's important here. Yes, there is death, but there is a lot of hope in this poem, because Lord Tennyson is not mourning his death. He's not mourning the fact that his life is ending, because there's something else waiting for him. He's looking forward to something, and that something is as given in the poem in the last stanza. I hope to see my pilot face to face, my pilot being my maker, my God, right? So it's a very simple poem, 4 quatrains. Yes, 4 quatrains, and you have 4 lines each, and very simple rhyme scheme. So please number the lines: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 16 lines. And if you see, the rhyme scheme is very simple: A, B, A, B. Yes, so the first and third, second and fourth, and it follows the same pattern in all the 4 stanzas, right? Um, uh, let's move on to the poem. It's not a difficult poem, very simple. It's very elegiac in its tone. Yes, it's kind of a song of death, song of passing away, but yet it's not mournful. It is, it is with a lot of hope, with a lot of anticipation that Lord Tennyson is moving over. Yes. And moving across, not over, moving across. And, he actually had told his older son, that is Arthur Hollom. He named his older son after his best friend Hollom. Yes, and he said that mm, probably the kind of dedication he was thinking about his friend whom he lost very early in his life, um, uh, for whom he had written in memoriam. So, this thought about death, and if you read in this synopsis given about his life, you will see that there is a lot of the recurrence of themes of a lot of negativity that is reflected in his poem, right? And perhaps at the very end he comes and there's a sort of resignation of what is to come. So let's take this poem as a kind of acceptance and resignation, right? Okay. So um, what do you have? The sunset and the evening star and one clear call for me. Yes. So the image of the first, immediately in the very beginning, you have the sunset and the evening star. So what is the time of the day? It is evening. Again, evening moving into night. Yes. Now this particular period of time is also important. It's a moving into the evening star when life is dying out. The day is done, my day is done. Yes. So my life is done, moving into eternity. Yes. So the particular time of the day is established from the very beginning. Sunset and the evening star. The evening star is Venus, and you call it the evening star as well as the morning star, and it's during the summer that it becomes a morning star, because you see because of the setting and the rising of the sun. And this is evening star, so it is also winter. So winter again, for poets, it is the end of life, right? And when he says, and one clear call for me, now one clear call, I mean, if you take it literally, I mean, it's, a clear call is a very nautical type of term that is used, when the ships sail on and there's one clear call, okay, set sail. So perhaps it is, in the nautical sense, it's one clear call. I have received my call. My days are numbered. I know I'm moving towards death. Yes, perhaps, literally, if we take it to be. Yes, the weather, the location, the evening, he's being called because his time on earth has been served. And may there be no mourning of the bar when I put out to sea. So when I set sail, and where is he going to set sail for? He's going to set sail for the land beyond, the world beyond. So he says that may there be no mourning of the bar. Like, let not people stand at the crossroads and the bar at the barrier between life and death and cry for me. He imagines there would be others mourning his death. Yes, so let there be no sadness, let there be no misery expressed. Let there be no complaining about my passing away. Yes, because I know that I've lived my life. and it is but for a reason that I'm passing away. And the reason again comes in the last stanza. So you see, again, like we did it uh, in Arnold's poem, which we just completed the other day, of Dover Beach and the metaphor of the sea. Even here, you see again, the traveling at sea is often used as a metaphor for the journey from life on to death. So that large metaphor. And so the journey on the sea is like a clear call that he has received. I am going to die soon. So this is preparing everyone for it. Right. So the first stanza done, we move to the second. But such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and form, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Yes, it is. You know that there is a kind of a link between the first and third and the second and fourth stanza. I'll tell you how, because if you see the first stanza, sunset and evening star, you see the third stanza is twilight and evening bell. Can you see the link? Yes. And what is there in the second? But such a tide as moving seems asleep. So he's still talking about the journey. And what is in the fourth? From out are born of time and place. So again, there is this journey of movement. So you see the thematic link between stanzas 1 and 3, 2 and 4 to be clearly established. Yes, but we follow a linear description. So in the second stanza, it is sort of talking about the tide, but what does it say? But such a tide as moving seems asleep. That it's not like the tempest. It's not high tide. It's not the roaring, like grating sound that we heard in Dover Beach. Yes, it isn't that. It's very calm. There is. It's not. It's silent. It is subdued. And he says, but such a tide as moving seems asleep. It's a gradual movement. So what is he saying? My movement from this life to the next is but a natural consequence that has been designed by the Almighty. Yes. So I am moving very gracefully from one life into the next. It is a very peaceful journey. It is a journey to another sphere of existence which I have undertaken with absolute peace and contentment. Too full, but such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and form. There is no space for noise and crying and the uh, the harsh roars of the waters. No, it's a calm, serene atmosphere. And remember also evening. So the tide is it's a low tide. When that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Now, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns against home. So the idea is like gradually as we are moving, the full tide sets in. Yes, so the metaphorical ship is being sailed into the deep waters. Yes, so there is no sound, there is no foam. The ship is right in the middle of the ocean, deep sea. Yes, so where is the journey of Lord Tennyson? I'm moving from literal to the metaphorical. Like the ship is moved away from the shore. So I have lived most of my life. And as Tennyson says, I have reached closer to my goal. I am in the deep sea. I can see the end, which is very close. I'm nearer to the end. Yes, and that is important. Yes. So very subtly he tells us how he is um, he has designed his path, how it's gradually moving towards the final destination. No, no show, no pomp, no sound, no fury. A gradual movement, right? Come to the, you see, of course, it is when he says that boundless deep. Um, So he's sort of, he's still, he's talking about, it's talking about a lot of distance that his life has covered. You know, Tennyson lived a fruitful life, a very long life. So he says that it is, and that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. So it has covered a long distance, and here home is the final destination. Yes, so the tide is turning. I've lived my life, and now I'm moving towards my final destination. Yes, so I'm not going to go back to the shore. Remember what I told you, this bar can be crossed only one way. You can't retrace your steps. I have moved further on, so my journey is not to come back, but it is to go on till I am one with the, remember, face to face with the pilot, right? So that's your second stanza. We move to the third, and like I told you, there's a link between the first and the third. And third says, twilight and evening bell, and after that, the dark. So you see, again, the day ends, a life ends, and may there be no sadness of farewell when I am. Yes. So again, the twilight of our existence, this is when the poem was written. A twilight of of this evening, the ship is sailing on into the deep seas. So you can get a visual picture of this ship of life that Tennyson has boarded on, gradually moving towards a destination from where there is no coming back. So you see the evening bell. The evening bell again, twilight and evening bell, so evokes a feeling of, you know, like for whom the death tolls, you know, that the funeral bells ringing, yes. So again, with the evening bell is come home to me. The Maker calls all his people, come home to me. So that's the evening bell. So all those who are ready to end this life and move into the next, come home. Yes, there is darkness, and after that, the dark. So once you come there, it is the end of life. One life ends. The darkness here definitely is not that. It is that Lord Tennyson has finally transitioned from one level of existence to another. But what is very clear here, he doesn't want people to to cry and howl and sort of express their sadness, because this is the natural phenomena of every existence. All of us who have come to the earth shall have to move on. From dust we have come, and unto dust we shall go. Yes, so there cannot be a sorrow, there cannot be remorse, and it is just I'm embarking, I'm beginning another journey. Yes, another journey begins. It's not the that I'm ending my entire existence. No, my soul lives on. I begin another journey on the other side. Yes. So you know, see that metaphor of the sea continues with the use of the word embarking. Yes. Again, I start sail on another boat, on another journey. But here I have different companion. Yes, I have a different companion. So you know, he's bringing this entire journey about moving from life to death, bringing into it a sense of adventure. Yes, it's a contrast to the kind of existence we have had on earth. Yes, probably everything that when we've come into this world, we didn't know anything. We discovered ourselves, but now again we are ready to set sail for a journey we don't know much about, except that Lord Tennyson knows that there is someone waiting for him, and he wants to meet the one person who is waiting for him on the other side of this journey. Yes, that is important. Okay. Move to the last stanza. For though from out a bourne of time and place the flood may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. Yes. So the theme of time and place. See, it's given in caps. Yes. So from for though from out are born of time and place. Time and place is this finite world that we are living in. it can be recorded. Our lives here can be recorded. Yes, there's several, each day, each moment of our time that we have lived here on earth can be recorded. So when, for though from out are born of time and place, the flood may bear me far. So though I might cross this finite world, beyond the boundary of this finite and world, I may go on, yes, moving towards the other life, the other existence that I'm moving to. The flood may bear me far. Again, this metaphor of water. You know, the flood, which is a very a kind of, if you think about the stories that we have read about Noah's flood, where there was destruction and everything that had to live was on the ark as it moved with the flood over to the other side. Yes, so the flood may bear me far. So this water, the endless sea, will carry me across. The endless sea will carry Tennyson across to his final destination, moving into that. Yes, but I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the line. And what is that? What is it that I'm hoping for? You know, why is he moving across to the other world with such tranquility, such hope, such equanimity, such peace, with such contentment? Because I've lived my life, he says, and then I want to go across and meet my pilot, who perhaps a pilot is a person who designs our journey, right? The pilot of a ship, who actually navigates the road for you. So who is navigating our life for us? If you are a fatalist, yes, who is navigating our life for us? Our maker, God. So I would want to come face to face, and that is what I wish to. That's what Tennyson says. So I'm crossing over from this life into the next, and I want to be face to face with my maker, and that is what I hope to get. So there should be no sadness, there should be no sorrow. I have lived my life and I'm ready for the next journey. Right? So, what do we have? We have the setting, end of the day, the metaphor, end of the day, sea, which sort of extends to represent the last few years of the poet's life. Yes, and you see, he of course makes a personal reference to it. If you check the last lines of the first, third, and the fourth stanza, when I put out to sea, when I embark, when I have crossed the bar. Yes, when I put out to sea, may there be no mourning. When I embark, may there be no sadness, because when I cross the bar, I see my pilot face to face. So these are the thoughts that you should keep in mind when you are discussing this poem. Yes. So uh, his personal thoughts, reference to the future, the physical darkening of the sky from sunset to twilight to dark, also reflects his movement of his life towards the end of his existence. Yes, and if you see that when, this constant use of repetition makes it clear to us that uh, he's writing about a moment in time in the future, when this happens, when I go, when I sail, when I'm dead. Yes, it will happen, not yet, but when it happens, do not mourn, do not show sadness, because when I cross the bar, I'll be face to face with my maker. Yes, and so there are certain things that he knows will happen in the future when I put out to sea, but what he is not sure of, he says, may you not mourn. When I embark, may you not be. So he's sure about his movement, but he's not sure how the others are going to react. So he's hoping that that will not happen. He knows he's going to move over, but he's hoping that the sadness and the crying and the sorrow does not happen. Yes, hopes it will not happen. But then, of course, there's something that he's hoping for is of the meeting with his maker. That is, of course, the most important part of this poem, the extended metaphor for death itself, right? Uh, but there is no doom, there is no sense of doom. Elegiac in tone, but not in content. Yes, so that is very important. So the theme of death and time and the journey, that is how you are going to discuss the poem, right? Are you clear about it? Yes, important techniques that I use. You see, very simple poem. Free verse, four stanzas, but you have this very beautiful rhyme scheme which is present. It's a first person perspective, absolutely the first person narrative, which Lord Tennyson has written himself, and at the end of it, of course, a very positive note that he ends with. Of course, you have to remember that Lord Tennyson is the one who wrote. If I to kind of a same kind of thought, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. So it's so happy that I've lived my life to the fullest, and now I'm ready to face death. Yes, so that is what you need to remember. The temporal setting, the unspecified ship that is ready to sail, the sun descending, the light of the evening star, the sailors moving on. He's one of the sailors moving towards when the final rays of the lights disappear, the darkness covers the earth, and he moves towards, and the ship is about to set sail on the long voyage, moving towards darkness. And as the sea vessel sails out, it crosses the sandbar. Yes, but some ships come back, but not the ship that the Tennyson is on. Yes, his ship is meant to go beyond the deep seas. Yes, his voyage is not to come back home again. His voyage is to discover the home that is his final destination. Yes, that is something that you need to remember. Clear with it? I'm sure you've understood it. And like you said, again, Industrial Revolution, Victorian England, you know how the thoughts of, Matthew Arnold, I always come back to Matthew Arnold, Tennyson, and Browning when they talk about death. But here somehow you don't end up uh, feeling sorry for it because he's lived his life and he knows that is a finality, and he's asking you to embrace the finality and live, be happy, and asking everyone around to be contented as well. This was a question last year in the board exam paper. The poem Crossing the Bar is a poem of affirmation and faith. Give your views. The questions are going to be very direct, so you will not have any trouble in writing about it. Faith in what? Being one with the maker. So our entire journey that we are going to talk about, the different allusions, the different metaphors, and finally moving towards the belief that I'm going to be one with the maker at the very end of our journey. Not to mourn, not to cry, because that is the inevitability of life, right? So believing in those principles of affirmation and faith in in our maker, our God. The second question, again, like I told you, you won't have too much of a difference. Lord Tennyson presents a lament as well as a celebration in the poem. Lament, yes. There will be people mourning, there is a death. If I'm talking of lament, there is a death, that's a period. Or there could be others who he hopes will not cry and will not mourn and will not lament. Yes, because for him, this is a celebration. This journey is one of moving into a world of of some of a vision that he has been waiting for all his life, to be one with his pilot. So again, lament as well as a celebration. Otherwise, if he wouldn't die and he didn't go cross that bar, move to the other world, he will never be able to see his pilot, whom he has so much of faith in. Like I said, faith is very strong in all the Victorian poets. In Arnold the other day, and Lord Alfred Tennyson today, right? So this question. And you can, of course, write a bit about this usual Victorian aspects that I mentioned in relation to Arnold. You can write it, yes. The third question: how true is the statement that the poem Crossing the Bar is Lord Tennyson's swan song? You know what's a swan song, right? The swan, the entire story of how it's believed that it's the last, before death, the last burst of melody that comes out of the bird. That's why it's metaphorically called a swan song. So again, how true is this statement? It's a swan song. 1889, he died 3 years later. What he told his editor, that it should be the last poem, and how through the poem he is ready to accept death. There is no delusion, there is no anxiety, there is no pain, there is no suffering. There is only a clear vision of a movement towards that world that is beyond the bar. Yes. So, right? With this, we complete our all the poems in our selection for the ISC. Next week, we move on to the last two stories, and then, of course, our final destination, which I always love, that is William Shakespeare and The Tempest. Till then, complete the poetry, and you'll be ready for this section for your whatever exams you're going to move into. Till then, stay safe, take care, and keep smiling.